Last Monday, I was invited to an advanced screening of James McAvoy's new psychological horror thriller, Speak No Evil. So here's my review of Speak No Evil. Just a little PSA, if I sound a little weird, it's because I'm coming down with a cold, and this is me powering through just for the review. Anyway, Speak No Evil is a reboot of the 2022 Danish movie of the same name, and it follows an American family who gets invited to spend the weekend over at the house of this eccentric British family that they befriended while on vacation. This lovely weekend then turns into a living nightmare when strange things begin to occur. Full transparency here, I've yet to see the original Danish movie, but if it's anything like this movie, then I'm pretty motivated to go see it now because this movie was so good. What I liked about this movie is that it wasn't reliant on jump scares. Going into a psychological horror thriller, you'd expect at least the opening of this movie to have an in-your-face scary moment to jumpstart the movie. But this movie didn't have that, and in no way does it ever affect the pacing because despite not having any scares every 5 minutes like how a traditional horror movie would, this movie was very well paced and it keeps you glued to the screen. And I think that's a testament to how well written the characters are, because for most of the movie you spend it just hanging around with the characters, building up their dynamic and setting up stuff that will pay off later. But in no way does it ever feel like you're killing time because each line of dialogue and every bit of interaction was purposeful, and I really like that. The cast is also amazing, and without a doubt the standout actor would have to be James McAvoy. He plays this eccentric, outgoing person who seems like he's just a guy down for a good time, but you know there's something more to this guy than he's leading people to believe. And I think James McAvoy does a really good job playing the eccentricities of his character, while also playing the more twisted and demented side of his character later on in the movie. I think a huge part as to why the movie never felt like it was dragging despite technically being a very dialogue-heavy movie is because of James McAvoy. He portrays the unpredictability of his character so well that throughout the entire thing you're just at the edge of your seat wondering what he'll do next. The kids in this movie also do a really good job, and I think it's worth noting because one of the kids plays a character who has a speech disorder, making him unable to speak throughout the movie. But despite that, this kid was able to portray so much emotions, and the two kids in this movie play off of each other really well. Mackenzie Davis was also great as the main lead. This was her movie as much as it was James McAvoy's, because we see most of the movie from her perspective, and she does a great job conveying the uncomfortable feeling this movie has her character go through. She also does a really good job portraying the toughness of her character. I like that in this movie, it's her and the tween daughter who were the smartest people in the movie. Scott McNairy plays the dad in this movie, and he too was great because if Mackenzie Davis was the tough, smart one who's questioning every single weird thing that happens in this movie, Scott McNairy's character is this cowardly weasel who's a bit of a pushover, and seeing their dynamic throughout this movie was pretty cool. Another thing I liked about this movie was that it was also surprisingly funny. Don't get me wrong, this thing is still a gripping, messed up, and serious horror movie, but I like that there were a few moments of levity sprinkled throughout the movie. I think it's only right that you have humor in this movie that is just as eccentric as the characters. The big reveal in this movie was also really good, and once the pieces finally come into place and you know what's really going on, this movie takes you on a thrilling final act that'll put you on the edge of your seat. Overall, I think this movie was really good. It's well paced, there was never a dull moment despite being a very dialogue heavy movie. It's gripping, and it's most definitely worth a watch.